for the, and please make sure to put your phones up here, thank you. Want to make sure that we prep a little bit for the test on Friday. Now I will tell you, I know that a couple of you are involved in the play. You are, I don't know if anyone else. I am. So if you two want to take your test after spring break, I leave that up to you guys. Because I know this week you're not going to be home till probably 10 o'clock each night, so I'm okay with that. But that's to your discretion, okay? Just let me know what you want to do. But I think that's only about 3 students that I have in the 2 classes, Ryan and you guys.
Are you excited?
I am actually petrified.
Me too.
And the reason is, first of all, I hadn't, and I props to everyone who does the theater stuff, but it's just a marvelous opportunity to make a complete fool of myself in front of my students, their parents, and the community that I've lived in for 22 years. So, you know, and now with social media, I mean, like, when I was in high school and did theater, if you flubbed up, nobody was recording everything.
That's a good point.
You know, it was just, and then you know, in 2 years, it was whatever you made the story into. Now, it lives forever. So there's that. So that's good. But it's fun. It's just been kind of, I am amazed at how much work everyone puts into it. I mean, it's a huge production. Very tech happy and so heavy, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to Monday when it's put to rest. But it's been good. I think every teacher should do something with extracurriculars like that for a while, just to kind of, because I have been there at least one night a week since mid-January. And the last couple of weeks, I've been there in the evening almost every night. And adding an extra 3 to 4 hours on top of a work school day is a radically different world than going to school and going home. Because when you're dealing with a 12 and 13-hour work day, or you know, activity day as the case may be, it's, you know, that's a lot. And you know, I was in school once and I did extracurriculars. I did theater in high school, and I did basketball and cross country and speech and debate. So I mean, I kind of sort of remember that, but all of that kind of wanes with time, you know, because you're like, oh, well, yeah, that was fine. You know, I have an increased appreciation for what you guys do with extracurriculars. That's really impressive. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm going to be green. It's going to be nice. So yeah.
Painted green?
No, I'm not going to be painted green. Well, maybe I am. I don't know. We'll have to see. How's it going?
I took some supplements. That would be fun.
I know. Okay, guys, let's before I get started, let's review a little bit for the test. That's all right. I know it's yours. Just put it in the box. Okay, I'm gonna basically do the review session right now because I don't have time after school because of play practice and such. So we're just gonna do this right now. All right. And I don't really have time before school because I've got some other commitments before school. So let's spend a little time, and then we're going to finish up with Romanticism and move to some social thinkers today, and try to finish up today and tomorrow with some of the key ideas that you need. Okay, what I'm going to do on this is I'm not going to have IDs on this test. It's going to be 4 or 5 short answers, which I'll pick off the list, and you may pick some, I may pick some, and then it's going to be some real short answer, fill in blank kind of stuff. So I want to kind of go through this with you a little bit. Here are the potential, so you'll do 5 of these, in essence. And these aren't going to be long, lengthy, like 5, 6 paragraph essays. These will be 2 paragraphs, okay? All right, here we go. Are we ready? Define the essential traits and characteristics of the Enlightenment and explain how it differed from the medieval worldview. Explain the essential traits and characteristics of the Enlightenment and explain how it differed from the medieval worldview. Okay. 2. Ready for the next one? 2. Besides John Locke, discuss the key contributions of at least 3 Enlightenment thinkers and explain how they reflected Enlightenment ideals. Besides John Locke, discuss the key contributions of at least 3 Enlightenment thinkers and explain how they reflected Enlightenment ideals. So that could be guys like Rene Descartes, Adam Smith, Isaac Newton, Michel Montaigne, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Okay?
Repeat it when there's at least 3.
Besides John Locke, discuss the key contributions of at least 3 Enlightenment thinkers and explain how they reflected Enlightenment ideals. Natasha.
Exit exam, whatever. Today?
Okay. All right. 3. Explain John Locke's contributions to the Enlightenment. All right. Number 4. Explain the causes and the effects of the English Civil War and the Glorious Revolution. Explain the causes and effects of the English Civil War and the Glorious Revolution. Okay. 5. List and analyze why the French Revolution was a major hinge of history. List and analyze why the French Revolution was a major hinge of history. Six, identify and explain the primary causes of the French Revolution. Seven, select the 5 most important events of the French Revolution. Defend your answers. Select the 5 most important events of the French Revolution. Defend your answers. Okay. Eight. What was the most radical era of the French Revolution? Who were its leaders and what were its initiatives? What was the most radical era of the French Revolution? Who were its leaders and what were its initiatives? Of course, you all know what the most radical era was, right? Yeah, exactly. Okay, 9. Identify and analyze the traits of Napoleon's rule. What was unique about Napoleon? Identify and analyze the traits of Napoleon's rule. What was unique about Napoleon other than his height?
Dang it.
How many points were
Everything. Ten.
Identify and analyze.
His friend was Pedro.
And why is he different?
10. Explain the demise of Napoleon Bonaparte. I don't mean like how he died, but how he fell from power. How did Napoleon Bonaparte change the world? How did Napoleon Bonaparte change the world? You can see that several of these would be large essay questions that I've broken down into more specific 1 to 2 paragraph kinds of things. Okay. Okay. 12. Analyze the characteristics of Romanticism and provide examples of key figures from the era. Analyze the characteristics of Romanticism and provide key figures from the era. How did Romanticism differ from the Enlightenment?
12 is that 13?
13, sorry. No mistake.
Key figures of.
The Romanticism. Like who would be some key leaders of that movement? Yeah, you would. Tchaikovsky in music, Beethoven in music.
What was the?
There you go.
Was 13 differences between Romanticism and Enlightenment?
No, that's all one question.
Oh, that's all 12? Oh, that's all 12.
Yeah, sorry. Next question. Next question. Explain how Les Mis reflects Romanticism and its ideals. Explain how Les Mis reflects Romanticism and its ideals. Oh, it's spelled on the sheet, so you'll find. Les Miserables.
Explain how Les Mis is what?
Reflects Romanticism and its ideals. Next question. Explain how Les Mis reflects the rising tide of nationalism in 19th century Europe. Explain how Les Mis reflects the rising tide of nationalism in 19th century Europe. Since you spent 3 days in class, you can pretty well assume you're going to get one of those Les Mis questions.
Okay.
Nationalism.
Thank you.
Next. Who was the hero of Les Mis, Jean Valjean or Javert? what's the most important virtue? Mercy or justice?
And that's the same question.
Mhm. Javert is Javert.
What was the second part of the question?
Mercy or justice?
Mercy or justice, which one's more important?
Okay. And the last two are stuff we've still got to cover. Explain the primary ideas and philosophy of Karl Marx. How did he influence the world? I'm going to want more than just communism.
That's all it says.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. Explain the primary ideas and philosophy of Karl Marx. How did he influence the world? Communism.
What's his name? Just-
Karl Marx.
That's gonna start.
And last but not least, explain the ideas of Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. How did they support the adoption of democratic ideas? Explain the primary ideas of Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. How did they support the adoption of democratic ideas? And as far as things that you might need to know for fill in the blank, I'm not claiming that it's going to be an exhaustive list like I'm giving you for the short answer questions, but these are things that you'd probably want to know. Okay? Yeah, I'm gonna give you some right now. Okay? I'm not guaranteeing that that I won't have something else out there, but
And how they, okay, I'm sorry, how they adopted the democratic ideas. Yeah.
okay. Just some important things to know here. Potential important terms. Tennis court oath.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Estates General. Louis XVI. Storming of the Bastille. Excuse me. Jacques Necker. Jacques, last name is Necker. Necker. Jack Necker. As they'd say in southeast Missouri. Jack Necker. Maximilien Robespierre. Yep.
Talked about the Necker guy?
Yeah. He was at the very beginning with the French Revolution, finance minister. Okay, Vendée Rebellion.
The what rebellion?
Vendée. Refractory clergy versus constitutional clergy. Law of the suspects. Law of the maximums. French rights of man and citizen. the continental system. Napoleonic Code. Waterloo. Did I already mention the continental system? Okay, Napoleonic Code?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Le Marseillais. It's spelled Marseillais. Of course, you guys know what that was, right? No, that's Marseille.
Oh, you're
You're close. It's the French national anthem. It's the one about.
Oh, yeah.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, yeah, watering their fields with blood.
Yes.
It's good stuff. Eugene Delacroix,
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Liberty Leading the People painting. Romantic painter. Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. Remember we listened to that in class. What does it embody?
Napoleon, is that Napoleon?
Yeah, Napoleon invading Russia and losing.
And then there's like,
1812, you said?
The 1812 Overture by Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky.
Oh, thank you.
And somebody else.
Natasha.
Sasha.
Sasha and Madeline.
Madeline.
Is there someone over here that one missing?
No.
Interesting.
No, I just miscounted before. We already mentioned the Russian campaign. Adam Smith. Rousseau.
Crusoe or Russo?
Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
Okay, I remember when the overture
Crusoe.
Newton. Isaac Newton. Rene Descartes. Descartes.
Any.
Okay. Napoleon, you know.
Oh.
Josephine.
Oh, the one that was.
His wife, first wife. Duke of Wellington. Do you remember what Wellington did?
Yeah, he beat Napoleon.
He, well, not only did he do that, but later he beat him for the last time at Waterloo.
Yeah.
The 100 Days.
That he was on that island?
Not that he was on this when he came back to power.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
because then he like come up and stand up and was like, follow me.
Yes,
Okay,
that's it.
you got it.
Okay, Elba.
The island.
Where he was first exiled. St. Helena. All right.
I thought it was Elena.
St. Helena. It's like Helen with an A. Okay, Karl Marx. Jeremy Bentham. John Stuart Mill. And last but not least, Auguste, which is August with an E at the end. Comte, which is C-O-M-T-E. Cool. All right, guys, questions?
Oh, yes. On number 14 of the short answers, whenever we were watching Les Mis and like what Marius and all them were talking about the Republic and stuff, was there like a difference, like the Republic and something else?
Yes, Republic versus constitutional monarchy versus monarchy.
So the Republic, they were basically saying they didn't want a king anymore and stuff?
Correct, no king whatsoever.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Are we good? I know I'm kind of spoon feeding you a lot of possibilities here, which is, But I've been in and out a lot lately, and I just want to make sure that you know what you're responsible for. You know, now you know what you're responsible for. It's Friday, you've got all week to review. What's that? I know, but you're halfway home.
Are we gonna have 5 on the next part?
In all likelihood. Because since this isn't 7th hour, I mean, we gotta get rolling.
Yeah.
Hey, I tell you though, it does, the end's in sight though. We've got 2 months down, 2 months to go, so.
We're
Only halfway.
Yeah,
Spring break, the end of 3rd quarter.
well, if you look at it, it's about the end of 3rd quarter, and you also look at it now because of snow days. I know you seniors leave on the 14th, but the rest of us are leaving like on the 28th.
Yeah.
So we got about 2 months.
I told you, I wanted this to happen in a day.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to finish up a little bit with Romanticism today, and then we are going to be moving on with some key thinkers. Okay. Now, we've kind of gone through Romanticism. What questions do you have about Romanticism at this point? You know what that is, or do you feel uncomfortable with it? Romanticism, let's just kind of go through real quickly before I move on past Romanticism today. Romanticism is associated with what century? 19. The 1800s of the 19th century. That's the same thing. Okay. What are some characteristics of it? What does it celebrate? Emotions and feelings. Nature. Very good. What else? What's that? Folk culture. Very good. Does it look to the future or does it look back to a glorious past? Looks back to a glorious past. Does it embrace logic?
No.
No, it does not. What's it a reaction to? The Enlightenment. Okay. One of the other things I should mention to you about it, which I don't know that I have yet, but they're going to start celebrating the artist. Okay? This is, they're going to the artist is going to be something that, the unknown young artist is something that they're going to start celebrating. And they don't even have to achieve fame in this lifetime. But, you guys know of a 60s singer by the name of Jim Morrison, Doors lead singer. That's kind of the example of like a lost youth, or in the 90s, a Kurt Cobain kind of person, or I'm trying to think from your generation, it's more not your generation yet, Amy Winehouse kind of thing, where you're artistic and you're doing your feeling and it's okay. One of the key novels that kicked off the whole Romantic movement was by a guy, a German novelist, by the name of, say it with me because it's a great name.
The Venerable Bee.
It's not quite that gay.
Not that good.
How would you pronounce this one?
Go.
Goeth. No. It looks like goeth. It's. How did you know, man? It's Goethe. Say it with me.
Yeah.
Goethe. Goethe. Very good. Say it loud. Goethe. Okay.
Where's the L? Nowhere.
Gretel. You know what I mean?
Okay. He's going to write a novel called Young Werther. And it's the story of this young dude who falls in love with a woman who's already married.
Oh my gosh.
It happens.
Now, folks, if you were reading like a Renaissance or an Enlightenment kind of thing, what should young Werther do? It's called The Sorrows of Young Werther.
Oh.
The Sorrows of Young Werther. Sorrow. Sorry, I provided you with sorrow by not telling. The Sorrows of Young Werther. Okay? Now, what should you do?
Move on.
in the Enlightenment, the logical thing would be to move on. In the Romantic
But we're
period,
not
what's the
thinking
thing that should you
logically.
do?
It's about
Pursue it.
yourself.
It's about yourself, and if you feel passionate for that other person and you want them, just throw caution to the window. Out the window, pursue them, just love, feel, and then ultimately commit suicide. Because at the end of the day, what is it about?
Love.
Love and passion and feeling. That's what it's about, my friends. Okay, so, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like the quintessential idea. You just throw logic and your future out, and you just need to pursue your passion.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Okay, now yes, sir.
Was Shakespeare doing this song?
No, Shakespeare is almost like 200 years earlier.
He was with like Queen.
No.
Jump.
And I call my dad.
It is, except the take-home of that at the end is that they shouldn't have committed suicide. Whereas the take-home of this is like, man, you just follow whatever feels good.
So then does he get
Have the
together?
pleasure, baby.
At the pleasure, does she get together with him?
Read the book.
Yeah, but it ruins their life.
Oh, and then she kills
Sounds
herself.
like,
It's fun stuff. Okay, now, because the whole point, how it's different than Romeo and Juliet is like, oh, well, we shouldn't judge people and all of that. It's kind of the take-home, but you still should not be doing things like this. The take-home, what Goethe is trying to say is, you just follow your passion. And it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, man, what's going to happen to each and every one? If I live a passionate life, but I die like at 25,
Man,
oh well, because it's better to live a... What?
Not a long time.
Yeah, that's the romantic movement right there. That's what we're talking about. Feel, man, feel deeply. And it's better to have like 25 years of extreme passion and emotion than 80 years of dullness. So just seize carpe diem. Carpe diem. Which literally in Latin means grab the carpeting. No, it doesn't. That's not what it means.
Grab the carpet.
Okay, so, by the way, if you're looking at a romantic poet, there's a guy by the name of Lord Byron. He died when he was about 25, but he was just all about soaking things up. He went and fought in the Greek Civil War, Greek Revolution in 1824, died there. It's all about the passion. It's all about the feeling.
yes.
Okay, so, do we got the romantic movement? All right, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. With music, who would be like the great romantic composers? Beethoven. Give me another one. You're right, and like the Ninth Symphony. Dun, 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 dun.
I learned that on my
That's
recorder.
Ode to Joy.
Oh, the joy, yes. Okay, what else? Tchaikovsky, the 1812 Overture?
Yes.
No.
No.
Bach is broke.
We already learned about him.
Cody, why did you choose?
Okay, Chopin. Chopin, because it's very emotional. Chopin. Is how we were.
Mozart.
No, not Mozart. He would be neoclassical or Enlightenment because everything's very precise and logical and very mathematical. Yes. Brahms,
That's a really good.
very romantic.
Yeah, guys.
Okay, and virtually every national anthem you could imagine.
Oh.
Because what are national anthems? Except our national anthem's terrible.
Thank you. Somebody else noticed.
You know, it's terrible. People can't sing it. You've got to be a really good singer to be able to sing it. But all right, so any other questions about this before we move on? Romanticism. Now we're going to be talking about some Enlightenment. We're going to be talking about some Enlightenment social thinkers.
I know what we're talking about.
About what? What's that? We already moved on from that.
Oh, look at him.
Okay. Jeremy Bentham. Now, right there, ladies and gentlemen, you see Jeremy Bentham.
That's what he looks like.
That's kind of
You see Jeremy Bentham. By the way, guys, just so you know, I'm going to have the little bit we had on Friday with the Industrial Revolution and Imperialism on the next test, because most of it goes better with what's coming next. the Industrial Revolution and imperialism. So it's going to be covered, it's going to be tested, but just not on this
What if
test.
it's a bonus question on this one too?
That's
That's a thought.
a thought.
Less things I have to study, Liz.
Hey, bonus.
Jeremy Bentham. Okay, Jeremy Bentham was a British utilitarian philosopher. And let's talk a little bit about utilitarian philosophy. What you see right there is Jeremy Bentham's head. Jeremy Bentham was a very famous philosopher, died in 1831, and Bentham achieved great fame during his lifetime, but when he died, he was a utilitarian philosopher, which means that he believed that how you judge the validity of any idea or any concept was by its utility. And one of the ways that he made this point is, what's the point of putting a corpse in the ground? It doesn't help anything. So we should donate our bodies to science. And so what he did is he created what was known as an auto, or when he died, he had some of his friends at his college create what was known as an auto icon. What they actually did is they severed his head, they put his head on a fake body in a glass box in the lobby of the philosophy department.
Yes.
And then they used his body for science. So he was like, hey, on one hand, this will help people realize that I was part of this department for a long time, and then my body gets used for experimental scientific research.
He'll turn two birds with one stone.
Yeah. He also said that if you leave I will also leave all of my papers, because I'm a very famous philosopher, to Queen's College in London, on the one condition that every so often they take my head off, they put it at the head of the table, and we have dinner together.
Good.
Can I
Goodness.
still do that?
Yes.
That must smell.
No, he's treated.
He's in a box. It's okay.
He is in a box. It's okay. But that's Jeremy Bentham as he looks today. By the way, the eyes are glass.
I was gonna say
Oh.
those have lasted a very long time.
So that's Jeremy Bentham today. So that's kind of the novel part of Jeremy Bentham. Let's talk a little bit about Jeremy Bentham's real ideas, though. He was a utilitarian, and utilitarianism supported democracy in a variety of ways. He argued that Britain should move less from a monarchy, and keep in mind that in Britain they had, at that time, well, they still do, although the House of Lords isn't that powerful today, but they have a bicameral legislature, with the House of Lords where you're a peer, you're a nobleman, and so you're not elected, and you have the House of Commons, which is elected. So he wanted Britain to become more democratic. That is, the people have a greater voice. Because he did believe in this concept of utilitarianism. How do you know if something is good? And he would say, well, does it bring pleasure or does it bring pain? That is, does it do more good or more harm? His criterion, okay, or yardstick for judging if an idea is good or bad, that's what criterion is, kind of your yardstick for judging if something's good or bad, is, does it do the greatest good for the greatest number of people? The greatest good for the greatest number of people. Okay? So, how do you determine, if you're a government, what would do the greatest good for the greatest number of people? Vote. That's what he'd say. Now, with morality, does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay? He also is going to develop a new line of moral reasoning called consequentialism. Consequentialism. Okay? And what exactly is consequentialism? Well, during the Enlightenment, there had been a dude, a very famous moral philosopher by the name of Kant, which is spelled K-A-N-T. Kant and earlier Greek philosophers like Plato had said morality was absolute. Like, some things are always right, and some things are always wrong. So, say for instance, a guy like Kant or an earlier Greek like Plato would say some things are always right. Would it ever be right for me to take a gun and shoot Bridget?
No.
Yes.
Abby laughs.
Wait.
What would Kant say?
Believe me, I'm like,
No. What would Plato say?
I mean,
No. What would Jesus say?
never.
No. Okay. Now, What would a consequentialist like Bentham say? It depends. What's that?
I was gonna say, if you don't get caught, then it doesn't matter.
Well, that's not exactly what he would say. But let's don't use the gun example because that's kind of morbid in this day with schools. Sorry about that. But let's say we're on a train, okay? And the train's going super fast, okay? And I've got a choice. The train track is here and here. I'm on the train. I'm the engineer. Okay? Choo-choo. I think I can. Now, I've got a choice here. I can go to the right on the track and I can hit Hannah. Okay? But there's a soft stop at the end that will save all 112 people on the train.
Oh, you
should
definitely
definitely
take
do
out
that.
Yeah.
Or I can go this other way and take my chances that maybe the 112 people on the train will die, but I won't hit Hannah.
No, hit Hannah.
No, hit Hannah.
What would Bentham say?
Hannah.
Hit Hannah.
Bentham would say what?
Because it does the greatest good.
The greatest good for the greatest. I'm saving 112 people, I'm killing one. Now a guy like Kant would say never kill, or Plato would say never kill. So you just take your chances. But you see how consequentialism works, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see any dangers with consequentialism?
Yeah.
What's the danger?
How do you know?
Killing Hannah.
Well, we're killing Hannah. And we're making it so he's now he would never say, okay, you should just go out and randomly murder people, okay?
Hannah.
But what he would say is that that's the yardstick. You know, the good of the many outweighs the good. Any of you Star Trek fans? No? A little bit. But you know the old Vulcan thing, the good of the many outweigh the good of the few? No, you don't know. That's Bentham's consequentialism. You look at what's going to benefit the most people. And he says, ultimately, what do we determine what pleasure or what happiness is? Because every philosopher says, what's a good life? Asks what a good life. And virtually all of them say, what's a good life is a happy life. Well, what makes a good life?
No, I keep thinking of that.
What makes a good life?
Being the best person that you can be.
That's what a guy like Aristotle would say. You're right.
Oh, I guess
What's that? Yeah, that's kind of what Plato and Aristotle would say as well. But what would Bentham say? What's happiness?
Doing the right thing? No.
Chocolate? Well, you're not. Ironically, Hannah, you're as close. It's pleasure. Pleasure.
She said that.
Now, what's the problem with this stuff?
Kill me now.
Everybody's pleasure is different.
Yeah, and isn't that a pretty low standards?
Yeah, it's pretty.
I mean, what if Shelby's, what gives her pleasure is just watching Netflix all the time?
Well,
Hey, we shouldn't judge her for that.
Well, I mean, is that really going to make society better?
coming from my brain.
No.
Okay, so that's kind of one of the key ideas that he has. But he's really influential, okay? Because how do we determine, I mean, largely a lot of times we are kind of consequentialists when it comes to morality today. A lot of us, I mean, I kind of hate to say this, but when we judge what the good in life is, we usually say, well, does it give me pleasure or not?
That's a good one.
So he's pretty influential, and he also really kind of advocated democracy and voting. So we got him. Let's talk about this dude, John Stuart Mill. John Stuart Mill is also a British philosopher and utilitarian, and he's gonna develop a couple of really key important concepts. Key important concept numero uno. Number one, piggybacking on that idea of the greatest good for the greatest number of people, he's going to advocate universal suffrage. Universal suffrage. What, my friends, is universal suffrage? No. I always thought this was a terrible term for what this is. It's voting. Everyone votes. Now, get this, folks. Everyone votes. Everyone votes. This is 1840s. This means everyone, including who?
Women.
Women.
Slaves.
He said everyone. Now, Britain had already abolished slavery, but if they had still had slaves, he would say regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of gender, everyone should vote. And he was this was like a radical thing in the 1840s. Why did he say that everybody should vote? Well, he said, first of all, women are people too.
Woo!
You know what?
Radical idea for the time, because people said, most people had argued, well, women aren't people too. They're different. And if you give women the right to vote, they're just going to vote the way that their husbands do. And Mill said, no, 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 no. Others had already argued that, well, you know, women want to be housewives. Women just want to stay home and, you know, cook and clean and make babies and be happy. And he's like, no, they don't. Have you asked them? Some women really feel oppressed. They should be able to do what they want to do. Give them the voice. If they want to stay home and be a housewife and cook and clean and make babies, that's fine. If they want a career, that's fine. If they want to serve in government, that's fine. So he was really the first guy who, or first male, I should say, who advocated complete equality for women. So that's kind of an impressive thing. Third thing that he advocated, John Stuart Mill, was universal compulsory education.
Wait,
So was the second women?
Yeah, the second was women. Why? The first one was universal suffrage.
then it's women's,
Women's rights.
Okay?
then it's,
And then it's,
yeah.
what's the thing?
Universal education. Okay, why universal education? Why would that follow logically?
Because
Some
some people
people
know
don't.
what they're voting for, so
Well,
they need
you need
education.
rights for everybody, everybody needs to know.
Education.
That's right.
Some people don't.
Everybody, if they're going to have a chance to rise or fall in society based on their talents, everyone needs a certain basic education. And so he advocated that whether you're rich or whether you're poor, you should have access to a school, public school. And I know for us, that seems kind of, well, of course. But keep in mind, at the beginning of the 19th century, public education was a rare thing. Okay? Let's move on to another key thing. He advocated for a progressive income tax. Okay, now, what's a progressive income tax?
Is this still underneath it?
This is still John Stuart Mill.
I mean, is
So
it
if
still?
you make.
It's another one.
Property tax for- So like, we shouldn't tax everybody 5% because you're gonna get less. So you should, if you get more money, then you should pay more taxes.
Right. Basically what he argued is the more money you make, the higher your income, the more you should pay an income tax.
Isn't that what we do?
It's kind of, yes. And what he argued, the reason he argued for this is, look, how are we going to pay for basic public services like schools? Think of it as those who have the most wealth should be paying more money for public goods like roads, like hospitals, like government regulations to make sure that factories are safe and healthy environments. Okay? And he argued the way to make society more democratic. The other thing that he argued about progressive income taxes, and this is pretty controversial in the United States today, to be totally honest with you. But the idea that he had was, how do you get a level playing field? You have to redistribute wealth to a certain extent. Because if you have a bunch of people who are really poor and some people who are really rich, are the people who are really poor ever going to have the same opportunities?
No.
I don't know if you watched at the end last week, but there was a massive scandal that has hit
Oh.
concerning college admissions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were talking about that.
We talked about that with Mrs. Gumler.
They dropped her out of the last season of Fuller House.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's bad.
Her daughter also got a lot taken away too. She had deals with like Sephora and like all these like hair companies, and she got taken out of all of them.
She'll probably make it through college.
Well, you know, the thing of it is, folks, I have just seen several examples of students who are very talented, who don't get into elite schools, and you know of wealthy people who do get in, and it does not surprise me that people who, you know, have lots of money, and for very wealthy people, writing a check for $400,000 or $500,000 is like you spending $5 on a 50-50 ticket at, you know, trivia night or a football game. You know, I mean, it's not that much. So what Mill was concerned about is how do we have a level playing field? And if you're truly going to have a democratic society, that's what it is. And his most famous book, okay, was called On Liberty. Okay? On Liberty. And these are the kinds of things that he is concerned with. And John Stuart Mill, a utilitarian philosopher, was one of the fathers of what we would call 19th century liberalism. Now, liberal in the 19th century didn't mean what it means today. Liberalism in the 19th century meant advocating public education, one person, one vote, no monarchies, that kind of stuff. Today, that's kind of been co-opted with you know, Bernie Sanders meaning. It's a little different. Okay, any questions about John Stuart Mill? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Hegel for a minute. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. He is going to George Hegel. Hegel is the guy. Why you need to know about him is he's going to influence Marx. Okay. A couple of key things about Hegel. First of all, Hegel is going to basically worship history in a way. He calls history the slaughter bench of ideas. Now, why is that the case? He doesn't think that history is a linear progress, you know, like a ray in geometry with a starting point and it just goes on and a wonderful thing. He thinks it's going to be a zigzag. But ultimately, he thinks history is going to get to what needs to be. Because he is going to argue that how ideas are developed are through conflict. Conflict is the prism that determines the success or failure of everything. Okay, and he calls this process the dialectic. So how does that work? Okay, Kat's got an idea. Okay, and her idea is that everybody should have a cat.
Animals in college.
What?
Animals in
college. Okay? Kelsey's idea is that everyone should have plants in college. Those ideas are in conflict. Abby's idea then will be, so this is the thesis.
Yes.
What's the opposite of that? Plants. That's the antithesis. Spelled like antithesis, but it's the opposite of that. And Abby will then represent the synthesis. Everyone should have animals and plants in college.
Yes.
Okay?
They can have plants.
They have to, or you can't.
Okay, so basically, what that is getting at, ladies and gentlemen, is for every idea you have, an original idea, thesis, there's going to be an opposite idea. They'll be in conflict, and out of that conflict, you'll get a better idea. And that's what moves all of human society forward. So it's this constant conflict. It's this constant driving that's going to get us to that point. Now, Hegel is going to say, you know, that history is kind of this idea that gets us there. And he's also going to argue that there is this Zeitgeist, which is German for spirit of the times or spirit of the world. Yes, spirit of the times. Okay? That every era is going to have kind of a different confluence of ideas. Keep in mind, what did that just come from? Hegel is writing basically around 1810, 1820. What had just happened?
The War of 1812?
Well, in America,
The Civil War.
but he didn't care. 1812.
Oh, 1812.
Yeah.
Civil War was after that.
Yeah.
We just talked about it in class, the French Revolution.